I want to say thank you to my Patreon subscribers and my Twitch subscribers. If you want to help out the channel, you can actually help out for as little as $1 a month. Enjoy the video and have some fun. Alright, so this video was given to me by our lovely friend Joe. And well, he says that no, this wasn't it. This is one I found myself. But this is a video. Oh man, I'm gonna do the one with Joe that sent me later. But this is a video with talking about it's Chris Hedges fan, and this is talking about how we're all slaves to billionaires now. That's an interesting claim. Let's see how that may be right or wrong. Remember, also like, share, and subscribe. Let's go.
This is the consequence of this.
And just spin it up just a little bit.
In 1980, before Reagan changed our entire economic system, and we're still living in the Reaganomics economic system, by the way. We are in the 40th year of a giant failed experiment in economics.
Yeah, that's the thing. Reaganomics was just horrible. This neoliberal like construct has just been hurting us for the longest time. We've gotten rid of the safety net. The wages have stagnated versus productivity. True wages, hourly wages for employees have stagnated, while CEOs and business owners' profits have gone up. We've went through 3 major recessions in my lifetime, from the dot-com crash, the ones that I remember, the dot-com crash, the 2008 crash, and the COVID crash. Like, it's just been horrible, but shitting on the most vulnerable people in order to give profits to the rich, what do you expect? But let's go.
And governance, the so-called trickle-down economics, and that's a whole nother rant. Those of you who listen to my show have heard me do it many times. But at that point in time, in 1980, the average markup was 21%. In other words, if a store bought a product, actually at retail tends to be somewhat different, but in general, goods manufactured, goods sold, the difference in price between the manufactured cost and the sale price was typically, on average across the country, 21%. Today it's 61%, which raises the question: where did that 40% of literally the entire economy, or the 80% of the economy that is the free market, as opposed to the roughly 20% of the economy that's government spending, where did that 40% of the 80% of the entire American GDP go?
So that's actually very, very interesting. When you actually see that so much of the 20% market, as he said. So basically, I remember working for GNC, and the big protein powders that they charge people $60 for, they only charged them like $25 for. Like, this is the profit they make on top. Like, basically the cost. That's what he's describing. And it's interesting where you get into like retail. And by the way, that was back in like 2008, 2006, 2005, 2006, 2007. Like, those big ass tubs are like $70 now. They only cost them like $30 at the time. And it's just like, y'all are fucking with people, right? And I looked at it and was like, wow, they're fucking with people, right? And yeah, no, they're fucking people. They're fucking people. But let's go.
Well, it turns out back in the 1960s, it's in the book. I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact year. I think it was 66. Time magazine had a fascinating article, and I was able to find it when I was writing this book, because I literally remembered reading it when I was a kid and thinking, wow, back in 1966, they published this article asking the question, what will life be like in the year 2000? 34 years in the future. And they looked at the relationship between the ability of a worker to produce goods and the productivity and the pay that the worker gets from.
This is what I was talking about earlier, the productivity versus the pay. And back in 1960, they came up with an idea. Then, the Friedman School of Economics happened. Then Reaganomics happened. And all that other good shit. But let's go.
From the end of the Civil War until 1966. And what they found, there were a few hiccups along the way, the great crash of the 1890s, 1896, and the great crash of 1929. But by and large, as workers became more productive, mostly through automation, again, the Industrial Revolution, as workers became more productive, their pay followed. Their pay went right up with it. And so looking at this, the writers for Time magazine said, well, if pay continues to follow productivity and productivity continues to increase just at the rate it has been since 1930, then we can expect that by the year 2000, the average American family, the average American worker, because back then the average family had 1.1 or 1.2 people in the workforce. Today it's a little over 2. But the average American income would be around $200,000 a year. So you ask, well, where's my, fill in the blank. I mean, the median salary in the United States is around $40,000 a year. So where did my $160,000 go? Well, it turns out we now know where it went. It went into the pockets of the top 5%. Most of it into the pockets of the top 1%. There has been this massive shift of wealth and income to start, and ultimately wealth is a consequence of the income, from working people, average Americans, the so-called middle class or working class, into the pockets of the so-called investor class. And it, in large part, is the result of monopoly. It's the result of these companies having us by the absolute throat. In France, you can pick which internet company you want to have provide you with internet service, which is why it's $15 for what we pay $80 for here. Now, how does that work? If the pipe coming into my house, the coax coming into my house is owned by Comcast. If this was France, Comcast would have to basically rent.
They charge $15 a month for internet. Oh my fucking God. $15 a month for internet. $15 a month for internet. I don't even know, man. Wow, that's oh God. And it's probably faster. As a matter of fact, I know it's faster because reasons. But let's go.
My pipe, the pipe coming into my house, to any company that I chose. So there could be 200 different companies competing to provide me with internet service. They'd have to send $1 to Comcast to cover the hard infrastructure costs, but then they could charge me, $14 additional for their services. So, in France or any other developed country in the world, you can choose from a whole bunch of different internet providers. Same with cell phone service. Same with, fill in the blanks, right? This goes on and on. But in the United States, no, the rules got changed over and over and over again. Whether it was airline slots or whether it was internet service or whether it was phone service, to lock us in to this monopoly system. And thus, our productivity is gone. The solution to this, in my opinion, what we need to do about this is twofold. Number one, we have to.
This is actually very interesting. Fuck. Yeah. Oh shit, we won. Okay, but this is actually very, very interesting because it's just telling you exactly what's going on. It's just like, and it's really, really weird. It's just like everywhere but the United States is where you see this bullshit at. And it's just like, y'all are really fucking with us. Y'all are really, really fucking with us. And I don't know. I really, really don't know. And damn, $15 a month for internet? But we got freedom here. Freedom to be oppressed by billionaires. But let's go.
Let me back up just a little bit. Reagan basically stopped the enforcement of the antitrust laws. They are still on the books. They can be interpreted by the administration because the administration is responsible for enforcing laws passed by Congress, and they can be enforced vigorously or lackadaisically. And in fact, there's even talk.
Microsoft is learning about the antitrust laws, aren't they? Microsoft is learning with Blizzard about the antitrust laws, right? Activision Blizzard about the antitrust laws. But let's go.
Right now, the Trump administration is talking about going after Google using the antitrust laws. Now, the main reason they're doing that is because Donald Trump is upset, because when you Google stupid things about him, they pop up,
Okay, that's gotta be the most triggered thing somebody actually do. You said bad things about me, so I'm gonna break up your company. Just like he did that shit with CBS, like, because he hated CNN. Like, that's gotta be the most triggered shit that I can actually hear. Snowflake like a motherfucker. Just snowflake, triggered, all that other good shit. Like, wow. Like, wow. That's snowflakey shit. But let's go.
At the top. But, I'm not expecting this to be a very vigorous effort. But, we have the laws. We just have not had a president since 1980 or since 1979. Well, 1980 was Carter's last year, who was willing to enforce those laws. Keep in mind, it was Carter who finished breaking up AT&T. So number one, we need to have an administration that's willing to enforce the laws. It's a conversation we all need to have with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris if they become president and vice president.
I would hope. Oh God, I would hope that would be awesome if they if they dealt with the shit like they were supposed to deal with the shit. Got his ass. Got him. Oops. But let's go.
Next January. Secondly, we need to tighten and fine-tune the laws themselves. And in part, that's because the Supreme Court got in the act. When Robert Bork started doing his song and dance in the late 60s and through the 70s about monopoly laws and publishing his book and publishing all these articles in highfalutin journals and things like that, the Supreme Court paid attention. I mean, he was a major figure. He was he had been put on the appeals court. I believe it was Reagan who first put him on the appeals court. So he was a federal judge. And then Reagan, I think it was '86, tried to put him on the U.S. Supreme Court. And that was when it came out that Bork was just a screaming racist and homophobe and misogynist and just one of the most bizarre, evil, awful people you could imagine, which we should have been able to figure out back when Nixon got him to fire his attorney general. I mean, he was the last man standing in the Saturday Night Massacre in the Nixon administration around Watergate. He was just
So if you don't know, like, Bork is one of the guys who, he was going up for, the Supreme Court, and it was like, yeah, we found all this shit and this shit and this shit. So he, that's the shit that, they were, comparing Kavanaugh to, and Bork, that before he even started, it was like, oh yeah, we see this shit. That shit, this is not gonna work. But, that's when it was, country over political party. But let's go.
Very corrupt guy, which is why Reagan liked him and why Reagan tried to put him on the Supreme Court unsuccessfully. But in any case, in a case called GTE Sylvania, the Supreme Court in the 70s adopted some of Bork's perspective. And, that can be fairly easily overturned. They didn't adopt it based on the Constitution. They adopted it based on the laws, on the way the laws were written. So all Congress would have to do is rewrite the laws, and not in huge ways necessarily. The problem, of course, is that the U.S. Supreme Court did an even greater harm to our country, which is why 2 books ago, the book that I wrote was The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America. In 1976, in a case called Buckley versus Vallejo, and in 1978.
So those are the allowing for money into politics. I believe that's what he's going to actually say, but let's see what he's going to say about it.
2 years later, in a case called First National Bank versus Bellotti, the Supreme Court ruled that up to that time, from 1789 when we became a republic up until 1976, if a billionaire controlled a politician to the point, basically was their major patron and donor, and that politician was always dancing to the tune of that particular billionaire or his or her industry, then that was considered corruption, and people would go to jail, a scandal. And it was also called...
Yeah, no, this is what he's talking about. Okay, yeah, he's talking about the allowing of money into politics. Let's go.
Bribery. Well, in 76, the Supreme Court said, well, no, if a billionaire wants to own a politician with their money, that money isn't actually money, it's speech. And speech is protected under the First Amendment. So we're going to call that free speech. And then 2
What?
years later in the Bellotti case, they said, and we're going to now extend this logic to corporations as well. If corporation wants to own politicians. And what that did was it just opened it broke the dam.
Yeah.
A flood of very wealthy, billionaire money. I mean, they weren't billionaires back then. They were 100 millionaires. We didn't get billionaires until we got Reagan's tax cuts. But billionaire, what we would today call billionaire money, flooded into the system.
And we have the fucked up ass system that we have right now. But I'm going to let it go ahead and finish.
Corporate money. And these right-wing foundations like the Scaife Foundation, the Coors Foundation, things like that. And that, at the time, the Democratic Party was largely funded by unions. And so they said, well, we'll take a pass on this. They didn't start taking corporate money until 92 with Clinton. But the Republican Party was like, hey, cross our palms, grease our palms with that money, and we will be whatever you want. And that's what basically, floated the, SS Reagan in 1980 and has been keeping the Republican Party alive ever since.
All right, so yeah, this makes so much more sense. This makes so much more sense right now, and we see it with so many people. We see it with so much of our political system, and it's pretty fucked up. It's really fucked up. And it's weird because a lot of people are so caught up in not seeing the corrupting influence of money that it has in our politics. And it's so fucking stupid. And I fucking hate it. And it just makes me feel like a lot of people, they want the corruption. They want the corruption because they think that they're going to be the next people they're going to be the next people that's going to be the billionaires, and they're going to be able to make the rules, and they don't want the rules because the rules are going to affect them because they're going to be the billionaires in the situation. And that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. And the fact that a lot of people actually think that way lets us know that a lot of people just don't have empathy for their fellow human beings. And I don't know. And it's just sad to really to say it. But anyway, like, share, subscribe, and all that other good shit.
If I gave myself the power